Hello to all you beautiful beings of light. I'm so glad that you could join with me today. We'll pull a few cards for the collective and see what messages Spirit has for us all. Some of these messages, of course, will resonate more specifically with you than others may or may not. Wow. I pulled the exact same cards that I pulled. Okay. All right, we're going to read them. We're going to talk about them. I felt very off yesterday. I felt very, was tired. It had been a very stressful day and added things on my plate right now. And so there was a tremendous amount of frustration and difficulty that came with that. And by the time I got to do my reading, it was almost like a sense of obligation um, to continue doing the work that I've been doing and stay consistent with it. Disappointment would have been very accurate for my experience yesterday. Because despite how much I had been consistently putting into things and trying to do so with a cheery face, it was obvious that I was just being taken advantage of in some ways. And there's a sense of feeling as though the expectations that had been placed on me were just way too high. And then in the same way, I had these expectations that this person who's previously not been able to deal with that well would have stepped up and been like, no, I've got you. And it wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. And, but I did the reading anyway. And then I went to bed and I slept for a very long time. And I woke up today, of course, feeling more refreshed and more myself, but also realizing that there's just, it's not just that this person has let me down, is that there was an entire community that let me down. It was an entire breakdown in what everybody is always told will happen when you're out in there, when you get out there into the world. And it just didn't happen for me. I don't have that village. I don't have that community. Um, I have created a community. I have found my tribe of people, of kindred spirits, and I've found that what we mostly have in common is that we were abandoned by so many people and so many organizations, resources that we weren't even made aware of, that we didn't even discover existed until we didn't need them anymore. Um, so it wasn't just one person having high expectations of me to do it all myself. It was everybody passing the buck. Everybody saying, well, somebody else can pick up the slack. Somebody else can do the work. Somebody else can be there for you. And what it resulted in is me having to face a sort of independence that uh, has damaged my ability to reach out for help when I need it. It's made things very stressful. It makes it difficult for me to feel accepted and and okay with myself, even if I can't perform, even if I can't do what I'm supposed to do. I still somehow show up and do it anyway. Is that's what I've had to do. So it's painful to acknowledge. I'll admit that. I want to talk about this card next. We talk about this card a lot, and the ending of cycles and grieving and releasing the things that are no longer meant for us. Really, at some point, I think we have to recognize that as long as things persist, if you don't stand up for yourself, if you don't say enough's enough, if you don't say I can't continue in this way, that it will, and it will drag you through the mud. It will be painful, it will be difficult. You will get forced back into the same cycle over and over again until you stand up for yourself. I think in some cases, even I'm feeling we need to be able to speak on these things. Say, hey, that was a failure on your part, not mine. I'm not responsible for what's occurring at this point. Um, and I'm not going to allow it to persist. I'm not going to continue to take responsibility for other people. I'm not going to continue to feel bad for situations the way that they unfolded because I can't take responsibility for all of these things. You can't place that all on one person. It's absolutely ridiculous that anyone would think that's the case. One thing I know is that I can't continue in this pattern. I'm going to burn out. I'm going to struggle if I don't say there is an end to how much I will tolerate. There is a limit here. And it's been crossed too many times for me to count, and I'm just simply not going to allow it anymore. Um, I know that there are individuals out there that mean well. They just haven't done the work. They haven't. There's a lot of privilege out there, I think, as well, where people just don't recognize the burdens that others carry, and it can break people down to the point where they will cut off uh, even important and valuable relationships because it becomes too much for them and they break and they lash out and they react in a way that not typical to them. But people will take that personally without recognizing that that person is suffering, that person is grieving, that person has lost a sense of connection to others and to themselves. And I'm feeling that today. I'm feeling this loss of connection with people who should have had my back, who should have been there for me, and who, and admittedly, we all have our own lives and things that we're supposed to step up and do for ourselves. And yet I see those people step up for others when they ask for help. They're right there, they jump to it. But when I ask for help, there's excuses. These are the relationships that I am grieving. These are the relationships that I'm looking at and saying, this can't continue. This is not sustainable. I am not being valued in the ways that other people value me, and these other people value me in ways where they don't ask for reciprocation. And I think that I've neglected and taken for granted that when I really should be focusing in and reciprocating that energy. Um, because when people show up for you when they don't have to, that's the biggest sign of love. And finally, new way of thinking about things, a new day, new opportunities to go forward and change the way that you encounter situations and change the way that you react to situations. Um, I feel better about it today than I felt yesterday. I feel more confidently going forward that I know what it is that I need to be doing and how I need to go about it. And sometimes it takes that big pain, that big break, in order for that inspiration to finally come and for you to finally realize what it is that you need and deserve. I hope that today this card finds you in a place where you understand what it is that you deserve, and you're willing to do what it takes to embrace that and welcome that into your life. It's always interesting to me when I pull the first series of oracle cards, and it kind of reiterates the emotions that I was trying to express in the first three tarot. But sometimes the oracle cards are a little bit more direct. Right? We've got purification and freedom is yours with the horse spirit. Some people see dandelions as weeds. Some people see marigolds as invasive flowers. Some people think of the sunflower as a damaging type of crop. But yet they all have their place and they all have their values that they add to the world in their very unique ways, and some of them tremendously valuable. There are places that we all belong where these specific attributes that we have are not just welcomed, tolerated, valued, valued in different spaces. There are people that farm the sunflower. There are people that farm dandelions for the properties that they offer. The horse spirit is here to remind us that we are not trapped. We are not forced to be treated as weeds because we are in a place where our specific contributions are not valued. Sometimes that does require something that others will envy. It requires you to release everything that doesn't suit you anymore and run off into the distance. And you might end up on your own for a while. You might not find a place where you exist comfortably for some time. It may require you to just run and graze and explore and see the world around you for a while. But eventually you will find others like you who recognize the value of what it is that you've gone through and what it is that you have to contribute, or don't have any expectations at all on you to contribute because they've welcomed whatever it is that has come across their lives for what it is rather than having any needs to be fulfilled. There's a sense of independence here that's going to be necessary for you to feel at home with where you are. You you're going to have to remove things that are no longer serving you. There is a sense of walking away from relationships and even habits and patterns. I decided the last few days that I was going to not use distractions from what it is that I need to do. I was going to focus on the tasks that I needed to focus on. And when I got tired, I was just going to rest rather than put on some TV or play that game on my phone or even just sit there mindlessly scrolling. I would stop and say, no, you have reading to do. No, you have something to clean. No, um, you can do some devotion in front of your altar. You can go, work on something that matters instead of distracting yourself, instead of taking that energy away from what needs to be done. And with that, I started to realize that there's a lot of things in my space and there's a lot of things in my life that just don't belong anymore. And it can be painful to let those things go, but there is a sense of freedom that comes with that when you release yourself from tangible items and from superficial relationships and the need to be accepted by people that don't value you. Some people are just not going to value you. Some people will never see the beauty in the dandelion. They will never appreciate a crop full of wildflowers. But there are people that absolutely find beauty in that and they find value in that, and it adds to their lives in a way that other things do not. And so we have to be willing to walk away from these things and consider it a part of cleansing ourselves and our space and our mental capacity so that we're opening ourselves up to what potentially exists there. We're able to clear our mind of all these ideas that have permeated our brains and told us what we are and what we're worth, and being able to run away from all of that and feel absolutely perfect the way that we are. Not that we don't have room to improve and grow and learn and heal, but where you are in your space right now, as you release these things, as you discover yourself, as you pull away the layers, you are also exactly where you need to be right now. And you are perfect in that way. And when you decide that you need to escape, that you need to run, you need to be free and you need to be yourself, then you are perfect in that as well. If you find yourself in a space where you are not valued, pick up and leave. It's not worth the limited time that we have here in this experience to not be appreciated and valued and loved. Two more oracle cards that are just going to keep adding to our message for today, I guess. We've got growth. I want to expand my consciousness and my awareness. And activated earth is the power lines, ley lines, and trusting where we're led. Sometimes it's not where we're led. It's sometimes we're pushed out into the cold and we have to go find warmth. Sometimes it's out of sheer desperation, trying to save our sanity, that we feel like we have no choice, but we have to leave a situation. And other times we just feel compelled to do things a little bit differently, maybe open ourselves up to individuals that we wouldn't have opened ourselves up to before. Maybe put ourselves in situations that might have felt uncomfortable in the past. I've been feeling called to embrace the musical side of myself. And of course, right now I'm also uh, juggling some extra things, and it's not the perfect time for me to do that. But I also recognize that this is going to be necessary for me to accept that I am now in control of my life, and that what other people think uh, from my past, people that thought that they could have an influence on me and tell me who I am and what I am and what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, no longer have that control over me. So sometimes we're feeling the squeeze. Sometimes we're feeling suffocated in the environments that we're in, and we step outside of that in order to trust the process and move to a new space, um, move to a new circle of friends, move to new environments, try a new hobby, explore an interest, reach out to a group of people that maybe you weren't sure if they'd accept you or not. Sometimes we're just called to do it even though we're comfortable, but we find ourselves so comfortable that it's become stagnant, that it's become, it, the air is just stale there and nothing new happens. I can remember a time when I felt that about my friend circle, that nothing had changed in years. Everybody was still doing the same exact thing that they'd started. And nobody really wanted to change anything about their lives. And so I stepped outside of that circle to go explore some other areas, and found that when I turned around, they were all gone. They had all decided that my choice to do that meant that they didn't welcome me anymore in that circle. It's like I challenged their ideas of what I could be, and then therefore there was no comfortable, there wasn't enough room for me in there anymore. It was difficult to accept, but yeah, I found myself being embraced by a larger community, and that community lets me be as, I want to say, they let me be as big as I want to be. They let me take up as much space as I need to take up. And we all do that for each other. We all allow ourselves that space. And sometimes it's just coming to the understanding that we are meant to change our environment. We are meant to be social creatures. We're meant to find community, and it's not guaranteed with your blood. It's not guaranteed with your geographic location. Um, you ever heard somebody say, if you've ever been in the dating pool, you've heard somebody say they have to be within like a 15-minute drive from their house. It's always been such a wild concept to me. Like, I got so lucky that the person that's a good match for me is within a 15-minute drive of my house. That's got to be rare, right? The world is a big place. And to find somebody that's like a good counterpart for you to be that close to you. I mean, yeah, no, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I mean, you may have met your childhood love and spent the last 20 years with that person and they live right down the block from you. That's absolutely possible. I think for most of us, the reality is that if we're confined to our social circles and to our geographic circles, that we just settle for certain ideas of what works. And often later down the road, these people find themselves dissatisfied with life, and then we have this influx of infidelity, and not that open relationships are not possible, but I think a lot of people open their relationships because they lack satisfaction with the partners that we're with, because they settled for a partner that would work so they didn't have to be alone. And then now they're bringing more partners into the situation so that they can add to that. But is it really necessary for all people? No, I don't think that's the case. I think many of us could have a little bit different standards and maybe open ourselves up to exploring and expanding our horizons and being more aware of who we are and what we want and what we deserve, and then going out and exposing ourselves to more communities, more people, and more geographic locations, and finding that there are plenty of people that match you or that could work with you, but there's only going to be a few that really, really embrace who you truly are and allow you to feel complete and whole. And that's just my interpretation of watching society evolve, watching people adapt to the circumstances that they're born in. And I think that's what a lot of these social phenomenons have resulted in, or have resulted from, is these limitations that we've placed on ourselves. Whereas we should be opening ourselves up and giving ourselves opportunities to explore and really become comfortable with ourselves as individuals, and then knowing what we have to offer and bring to the table, and having standards for that, not needing someone to make us feel complete, but feeling complete on our own, and then that leading us to more fulfilling relationships, whether it's monogamous or multiple partners. I don't think that's necessarily the factor. I think it's more about um, the influx of people that think that this is necessary in their lives is because they've not considered other options. They've not considered that perhaps they're a little bit codependent and they have these ideas and expectations that other people are going to fulfill them rather than they fulfilling themselves. I'm not against any of these occurrences. I think that they're fairly natural to evolve. But I also think that sometimes these things evolve as a result of unnatural circumstances. And there are ways that we compensate for areas that we've not taken the time to grow. So focus on your growth, focus on giving yourself opportunities to expand your experiences and your sense of self, and trust that the universe is going to guide you to the places that allow this to happen in the most healthy way. Might not just be in that little geographic region that you find yourself in right now. There might be other social casts, there might be other communities, there might be other hobbies, there might be things that you don't necessarily think of when you think of things that you would be welcomed into or areas that you would be welcome, and you might find yourself to be really thrilled with what you uncover about yourself when you do expose yourself to these new things. Just some things to consider from my own perspective. I don't expect everyone to agree, but that is the nature of the world, isn't it? We're all here to learn and explore, and I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for joining me on your healing journey. I can't wait to hear from you again.